Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskrutya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Deving Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshva Padreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Continuing with Prahlad's prayers, Canto 7, Chapter 9, Text 33. 7.933. Tasyaiva teva puridam nijakala shaktya sanchudita prakriti dharmana atma gudham ambhasyananta shayanat viramat samathir nabhera putsvakarnaka vardhavan mahabjam. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. This cosmic manifestation, the material world, is also your body. This total lump of matter is agitated by your potent energy known as Kala Shakti, and thus the three modes of material nature are manifested. You awaken from the bed of Shesha, Ananta, and from your navel a small, transcendental seed is generated. It is from this seed that the lotus flower of the gigantic universe is manifested, exactly as a banyan tree grows from a small seed. Purport. The three different forms of Mahavishnu, namely Karanodakashaya Vishnu, Garbhodakashaya Vishnu, and Kshirodakashaya Vishnu, who are the origin of creation and maintenance, are gradually being described. From Mahavishnu, Garbhodakashaya Vishnu is generated. So Mahavishnu is generally used as a synonym for Karanodakashaya Vishnu, the first of those three Vishnus listed. So from Mahavishnu, or Karanodakashaya Vishnu, Garbhodakashaya Vishnu is generated, and from Garbhodakashaya Vishnu, Kshirodakashaya Vishnu gradually expands. Thus Mahavishnu is the original cause of Garbhodakashaya Vishnu, and from Garbhodakashaya Vishnu comes the lotus flower from which Lord Brahma has manifested. Thus the original cause of everything is Vishnu. Original cause of what?
Everything.
Everything?
Everything.
Is Vishnu. And consequently, the cosmic manifestation is not different from Vishnu. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 10.8, wherein Krishna says, Aham sarvasya prabhavo matta sarvam pravartate. Quote, I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. End quote. Garbhodakashaya Vishnu is an expansion of Karanodakashaya Vishnu, who is an expansion of Sankarshana. In this way, Krishna is ultimately the cause of all causes. Sarva Karana Karanam. The conclusion is that both the material world and spiritual world are considered to be the body of the Lord. We can understand that the material world is caused by the spiritual body and is therefore an expansion of the spiritual body. Thus, when one takes up spiritual activities, one's entire material body is spiritualized. Similarly, in this material world, when the Krishna consciousness movement expands, the entire material world becomes spiritualized. As long as we do not realize this, we live in the material world. But when we are fully Krishna conscious, we live not in the material world, but in the spiritual world. Om Jnana Timirantasya Jnananjana Shlakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshthaya Putale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschati Deshatarane Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So we've been hearing from Prahlad about Krishna's transcendental nature beyond the material world and how it comes from him. And now he's getting more into this non-difference of the material world with Krishna, and Prabhupada is expanding on it in such a beautiful way. He says this one sentence in the purport, which I think really holds the whole purport together. The conclusion is that both the material world and spiritual world are considered to be the body of the Supreme Lord. Okay, so once upon a time, story time. Bless you.
Thank you.
Once upon a time, it's a real story. On this world, everyone basically was taught that the world is sacred. The world around us, not just God, Goddess. The world around us. Your body is sacred. The nature, the seasons, they're sacred. The food you eat is sacred. The grass, the trees, all of that is sacred. Clouds, everything. They may or may not have been taught that explicitly there's a connection between this world and the divine, and this is like the nature of the spiritual world, but they were taught that the material world is sacred. And then, less than 1,000 years ago, that became an unpopular idea in some places. And that unpopular idea became less and less popular. What became more and more popular was the idea that, although this wasn't explicitly taught, it was implied that it's not sacred. Don't talk about sacred. That's mythology. That cannot be tested. It's not real. It's not sacred. And therefore, you can do whatever the hell you want with it. That's the implied part. That's the ugly part no one wants to talk about. That's the implied conclusion of stripping away the sacredness from the material world. So Prabhupada's saying, the conclusion is that both the material world and spiritual world are considered to be the body of the Supreme Lord, right? So this is really not different from traditional wisdom. Ask any traditional, any shaman, anybody who has like a connection with traditional wisdom and any tradition at all, they'll say some form of this, that we're walking on the body of the divine. We're eating from their own body. We're being provided from that, right? And if we don't have that understanding, which is the correct understanding, it's what Prabhupada calls the conclusion, and what I consider to be the linchpin of this whole purport that Prabhupada is giving us. If we don't have that understanding, then it opens a door for anything that our ego wants to insert. Anything. I mean anything. As dark as you want to get, you can get. And the only thing that really protects us from our ego, our false ego getting in the way, is remembering that the material world and spiritual world are both the body of the Supreme Lord. How much more personal can you get than that, right? It's the body of the Lord. So, Prabhupada continues, he says, we can understand that the material body is caused by the spiritual body and is therefore an expansion of the spiritual body. This is a reference to what he's saying earlier in the purport when he's talking about the technicalities of how the material world emanates, from which expansion of Krishna it emanates as an energy of his. So Krishna's body is not material. When Krishna appears in this material world, although we can see him with our senses, it's still not a material body. And in the spiritual world also, it's not a material body. Mahavishnu lying in the causal ocean, not a material body. It's a spiritual body, always. So the material universe is considered to be his material body. Right? The universal form that we hear about in chapter 11 of the Bhagavad Gita, with thousands and thousands of heads and thousands of eyes. The one Jimi Hendrix ripped off for his cover of one of his albums because it looks really trippy and far out. Mm-hmm. With all the humans and animals and demigods contained in it, and all the material things all at once, that's Krishna's material body. It has a beginning and has an end. Right? He didn't have to accept it. He chose to, for us to play out our thing and also have a place to come to him. But in that world, it's under the material rules. But it's coming from his spiritual body, right? This is a very deep point, actually. All matter comes from spirit. All matter comes from spirit. It doesn't come from itself. Matter is not self-perpetuating, ultimately. It's not. There has to be some conscious force behind it, right? Conscious living entity and another conscious living entity get together, and then the bodies are manifest of another conscious living entity, and that consciousness enters there. The consciousness that enters and the bodies themselves are both energies of the Supreme Person, right? They're both energies of the Supreme Person. One is a spiritual energy, our actual selves, and one is a material energy, our bodies. But everything that we're seeing, that is even the external energy, is from Krishna. It's emanating from his spiritual self. So all matter comes from spirit, which means it's spiritual in origin. And our job is to reconnect that which comes from spirit with spirit and not disconnect it. Right? Prabhupada says that bhakti, and this is also from Shastra, bhakti boils down to always remember Krishna and never forget him. Mm-hmm. That's exactly the same thing I just said. Always reconnect matter with spirit and never disconnect matter from spirit. Right? Always remember Krishna. Look at the word remember, right? Ever heard the word dismember? The gruesome idea of like ripping apart somebody's limbs from their core. To dismember, to take something away from its essence, its core. To remember is to reconnect with one's core, the core of the thing that you're talking about. Always remember Krishna means, what is the anga, right? What is the limb, the member that I'm dealing with right now, and how is it connected to source? How can I reconnect it to source? That's my job. And not to forget Krishna means not to create a space psychically, just theoretically, because there's never actually any disconnection from Krishna. But theoretically, not creating some space in my mind due to inattention where I drift, and now that thing that I'm looking at is separate from Krishna, separate from source. It's not rooted in a spiritual reality anymore in my mind. It still is in reality, but in my mind, which has power, especially over me, it's not connected. So our job is to connect the thing with Krishna and not to disconnect the thing with Krishna, from Krishna. So that's what it all comes down to, and that has infinite application. And you know, if a belief system, a philosophical system, a value system, a moral system, such as the one that became popular a few hundred years ago, is the predominant system, then we have a culture of forgetting Krishna. That's what it means. We have a culture of dismembering the material energy from its source. Although nobody can make the material energy not spiritual, we can deal with it as if it's not spiritual. And who suffers because of that? Does Krishna suffer? Not really. We suffer. We're causing our own problem if we do that. We have the power to disconnect anything from its source, and we have the power to reconnect anything to its source. That's the power of consciousness that Krishna has granted us. We have that free will. We get to do that. Now he's giving us that free will, and he's giving us all these little pieces of the material energy to deal with. From his point of view, there is no difference between the material energy and the spiritual energy, right? There is no difference. Mm-hmm. Just like from my point of view, when I, let's say I'm an employer, I call somebody and I say, you're hired. I call someone else and say, you're fired. There's no difference. They're both real. They're both my will. But from the point of view of the person getting called, it's very different, right? Mm-hmm. I'm part of that company now. Oh no, I really shouldn't have been sleeping during work. I guess I lost my privilege. I'm gone. I'm not part of the company anymore, right? Mm-hmm. But from my point of view, it's the same thing. Krishna is the master controller of every energy. It's always part and parcel of him. It's never a time where he's like, yeah, I don't feel like having that part and parcel be part and parcel of me anymore. He doesn't do that. It's not his nature. We may do that. We may be whimsical. Krishna is not whimsical. Krishna is very, very steady and very loyal. It came from him. It belongs to him always. There's no greediness over that. It's just fact, and there's love actually. So, but for us, we may disconnect. So we can suffer. We can suffer temporarily by forgetting and buying into the hype that that things aren't divine, and it's a subtle kind of corrupting influence. These value systems that are based in the idea that things are not divine, right? This is why people want magic. This is why people go to movies. This is why people go to concerts. This is why people have casual sex, This is why people take intoxication. They want something transcendent because they're built for it, because reality is built for it, because we're all part of Krishna and we're all divine, and everything is divine. And we're all looking for a way to realize that. And without that, life sucks. And we'll keep looking. So our whole goal in the Krishna consciousness movement, our whole goal in our personal bhakti practice is to remember that we're divine, everyone we're dealing with is divine, all the external limited material factors, they're also coming from a divine source, they're also divine, even though they're limited and temporary and kind of miserable in a certain context, and they have their problems and they're not spirit, but still they come from spirit, so they're spiritual, they're divine. And we have to remember that. Prabhupada says, when the Krishna conscious movement expands, the entire material world becomes spiritualized. As long as we do not realize this, we live in the material world. But when we're fully Krishna conscious, we live not in the material world, but in the spiritual world. Same world. The world doesn't change, but we change, and it becomes a spiritual world. How? By realization, by reconnection. This is kind of an abstract representation of what happens for us experientially when we chant good rounds, or when we have like an ecstatic kirtan, or some spiritual experience descends into our conditioned life, and our eyes feel like they're open, and we're seeing something beautiful, and we're tasting something real. That's what happens, is that we're not living in the material world anymore. We're living in the spiritual world. We can still see the material objects, right? Like, that's the same carpet, it's the same ceiling. I'm living in the same body, but I'm jumping up and down in an ecstatic kirtan like we were yesterday. Was it yesterday?
Wednesday.
Right there. Raghu led an ecstatic kirtan. We were bouncing off the walls here. Raghu from Wisdom of the Sages. And we were like, I was looking around and people were like, yeah, they were feeling what I was feeling. We were all feeling like not in the material world anymore. And we could see all the material elements are still there, but it had been transformed. So from Krishna's point of view, it's always like that. It's always like that. That's the spiritual world. We're trying to reconnect with that. And Prabhupada gives us, I consider it very encouraging, very comforting. He says, as long as we don't realize this, we live in the material world, but when we're fully Krishna conscious, we live not in the material world, but in the spiritual world. We don't have to wait for this body to die, which is nice. From a certain point of view, you do, in order to have, it's described in the Madhurya Kadambini of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur that, prema, Krishna prema, the final stage of development of consciousness, actually has several stages within it. And the final ones of those are not even really manifested until we have a spiritual body. We're not living in a body that has any material qualities. We can spiritualize this body, but there's another level when you leave this body and you take birth in whatever universe Krishna is in, for example, in that Vrindavan, and where he's having those pastimes, and you're like in a spiritual body. That's another level of prema. But for our purposes, it's very comforting to know that effectively, in this material body, we can experience prema, and we can be in the spiritual world. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur confirms, what Prabhupada confirms is that if you have developed that prema, then being born in whatever, whether it's Vrindavan or like Ayodhya, if you're a Ram Bhakta, whatever spiritual world that you're destined for is going to happen. So there's no more work for you to do. I just consider and hopefully you do, consider very encouraging that we can live in the spiritual world even with a zip code and having to pay taxes and observing the chaos of Kali Yuga. We can live in the spiritual world just like Prabhupada did, and Prahlad Maharaj, and Narada Muni, and the gopis of Vrindavan, and this geographical planet. We can go to where they lived, We can go to Varshana, where Radharani grew up. We can go, and it's like, this is a place that's like part of the material world, but it's not. We can actually have that for ourselves, too. And the other point I wanted to bring up is that Prabhupada, as he often does, he takes it to the level of the mission. He says here, when the Krishna consciousness movement expands, the entire world becomes spiritualized. This is effectively one of the most practical ways to realize the spiritual world, is to spread the Krishna consciousness movement. Because the Krishna consciousness movement, the Bhakti Yoga movement, which is a non-sectarian movement, which is a completely accessible movement, it is actually for the betterment of everybody, is directly Lord Chaitanya's will. That's Krishna's will. And we may theoretically understand that, but if we try to push it on, which means like helping ourselves become Krishna conscious and helping anybody else, anywhere else, become Krishna conscious, by distributing prasad, by having conversations, by spreading the holy name. There's so many small things we can do. Anything we do, to any degree that we do it, to that degree we'll realize the whole world is becoming spiritualized by that. Everything is becoming affected by that. I remember when I was a brahmachari in Denver, we lived just next door to the temple, which is like a 1 minute walk off of, it's a really nice neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And if you walk 1 minute south, there's a really nasty street. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to remember what the name of that street is.
Dundas. Dundas?
No, that's Toronto.
Oh, okay.
Also nasty.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Anyway, it's right there, and it's full of like tobacco and cannabis dispensaries and tattoo parlors and
tire shops.
That's like the most upscale thing you'll find is a tire shop. It's really nasty. And right on the corner there's a convenience store and a liquor store, and that's the only thing. Just right on that corner, it's just a liquor store, and they did crazy business. They did so much. They sold so much liquor, and I had a thing where I was trying to distribute at least a book every day, and because it was literally the closest place with people who are like random traffic. I walked to that parking lot. Colfax, thank you, Colfax, gateway to hell, and I walked through the gateway into hell. And I did, because I was surrounded by hellish mentalities. At one time, there was a drunk driver who drove into the parking lot. She was weaving as she got out of the car. And she took a book from me. And then she's like, I don't want this drink anymore. I'm going to get back in the car and drive home drunk. And the point is, I would go to Colfax, I would go to hell, and I would walk in and I would distribute books. And the whole time I'm chanting Hare Krishna, because it's hell. And you can feel that if you're living in a temple and you walk into a liquor store parking lot. You'll feel it. Actually, you'll all feel it now, even if you're not living in a temple, because you have a practice. So I'd go there, and one day I had this very powerful feeling overcome me, and I realized, like, this parking lot is getting so much benefit from people taking books here and giving like a penny or whatever, and me chanting Hare Krishna, because it's not the material world anymore. And maybe it never was. And maybe in the next yuga, this is going to be like a sacred forest grove or something. Like, this is just, there's something happening here that I can't understand, but I'm beginning to understand. And it was an overwhelming feeling that I was convinced was real. And I didn't have that feeling again in the same way, but every time I went back, which was many times, I remembered that feeling. And I was like, yeah, that's true. And that's what Prabhupada's talking about. The material world becomes changed. Our own bodies become changed. How is the Prabhupada, who was born in Bengal, lived in a material body, had a material identity, could sleep for 2 hours a night and do the miraculous things he could do and have 2 heart attacks and come spread Krishna consciousness? You can't do that with an 80-year-old old man body from anywhere. What to speak of India, where he probably didn't even get like enough nutrition growing up by our own modern standards. Like, no, that's spiritual energy. That's spiritual energy. It's not possible in material energy. His body became spiritualized. His voice became spiritualized. His writing became spiritualized. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami writes in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that, I'm trying to remember what chapter it is. Anyway, he's very old when he was writing the Chaitanya Charitamrita. He's the author. It's the primary biography. He says at one point, I'm very old, and I'm blind, and I'm becoming invalid, and my body shakes, and still I write, and this is a great wonderment to me, right? He's got like palsy, and he's blind, and nothing is working anymore. But because Mahaprabhu wanted it, actually Lord Nityananda appeared to him and gave him the instruction to go to Vrindavan, and he said actually, as soon as that dream broke, I left immediately. I left my home immediately for Vrindavan. No break. So because Lord Nityananda wanted it, he was under the spiritual energy, and his whole body became spiritualized. So crazy, insane things like that happen because of taking shelter of Krishna, that the material body gets changed, the place gets changed. Prabhupada talked about this all the time. Like one time, Prabhupada said, the devotees came to him and said, there's this property, which is a really, really good investment. We think we can turn it over and make some money or have it be like a really good place for preaching, but it's haunted. Like, it's completely haunted. And devotees, they understood from Prabhupada, and they understood from the Vedic culture that ghosts are real. This is not mythology. Prabhupada said, no problem. Have a raging kirtan, and then the ghosts will be encouraged to go back wherever they need to go because the spiritual energy will enter, and they're just stuck. They're stuck in some limbo situation they don't even want to be in. Just chant Hare Krishna. And they did. And Prabhupada would do this too, because he lived in a variety of places, and some of them had wanted or unwanted guests, and he would chant Hare Krishna, and the place got changed, right? All the little poltergeists and geese and specters and wraiths and, you know, you name it. They all went back to wherever they needed to go, their next destination. The place got changed. The vibe got changed. Actually, there was a place right next door. Yeah, there was. You can see it now in Denver. There's that Harmony. What's it called? Where the
Harmony Sanctuary.
The Harmony Sanctuary. We met there. Before it was a beautiful. It's a beautiful building, right?
Beautiful.
Very, very, very sattvic. Before it was that, it was dank, and there was a basement down there that I didn't even want to walk into. I walked halfway down the stairs. I was like, "There's no way I'm walking any further." There was something living in, straight up like ghosts. It was so nasty. It was polluted. It had like all the lowest modes of nature, and we bought it. We turned it over. We cleaned it up, demolished the thing, and now it's that. And the vibe changed, right? It was spiritualized. So everything can change because if we connect to that spiritual essence, that spiritual root, the body, the place, the time can change. Our culture can change. The language can change. The vibration can. The food can change. Anything can change. All you have to do is remember that it's divine. And there's a very simple science for that. Chant Hare Krishna. Remind yourself and remind anyone else that they're divine. By chanting Hare Krishna, distribute prasadam if you can. Chant everywhere you go. Go to all the little gateways of hell. Take a tiptoe in, chant Hare Krishna, tiptoe back. Distribute books. Make yourself happy. Make everyone else happy. And watch the magic. It's really that simple. Om Tat Sat. Let's take any reflections.
I'd like to reflect. First, Shamya, thank you, class, this morning. I think every day and in tons of ways, we're reminded that we're not in charge and that, Krishna is here. Like, for instance, every day there's an opportunity to wake up and watch the sunrise. And that's one of the most, for me anyway, that's one of the most amazing spectacles because it's a painting, it's a live painting happening in front of you every day, and it's always different, and it's always different colors and different clouds and different formations, and it's miraculous, and it's the muse of every painter or artist out there. And when you sit and watch that, you know that there's higher power, that you're small in the grand scheme of things, and that that there's a spiritual nature, and it's so easy to forget. And tomorrow you could decide to sleep in and miss it, and then go get in a traffic jam and get on 95 and start cursing out everybody in the material world because they cut you off and you're busy and you got to go to work or whatever it is. And you could just choose to forget that this beautiful spiritual world is really everything. And I don't know, that's just when you were talking about, being in everything's from spirit. Mm-hmm. I thought to myself, well, every day, and I know that a sunrise is just one of many things you can choose to anchor to, but just a reminder every single day, it's there.
Yeah.
But how easy is it for us to forget that it's there? That's just what came to mind as you were talking through everything. Thank you.
Frighteningly easy to forget.
Yeah.
But it's also very easy to remember again. And as far as anchors go, it's one of the classic ones. The sages would wake up early and they would anchor themselves to it. They get a head start if they could and chant a little bit or do the meditation, do their Gayatri, what have you. And, one thing I've always noticed, and it's kind of funny, but I always thought it was frustrating until I heard what you just said and I realized why it happens, is that you can never capture a sunrise properly on a camera. Never. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter how good it is. Impossible.
Or a sunset.
Or a sunset. You're just like, no, this is just so much better. So material consciousness is like a facsimile. It's like this is something cool I took. It's like a butterfly that was living, and I killed it and stuck a pin in it. And isn't that awesome? Isn't that pretty? Isn't that wonderful? Look at my wonderful butterfly that I stole and killed, right? Or my sunset I tried to capture, but real life, spiritual life is like, wow. What if I actually got up in time and showed up, and instead of trying to take it for myself, I was just like, okay, Krishna, you just show me what you got, and saw it on his own terms, and then it's just mind blowing every time. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
So, so the spiritual practice that we have is like that, and in our heads, like chant that again, that's gonna suck. Can't we do something different? But if we just put our little camera down that's trying to record and measure everything and evaluate everything, put it down for a second and just wake up and be present, then it's like, oh yeah, it's actually bigger than me and my own tiny, tiny brain and ideas. The camera's like a little tiny frog in a well trying to capture an idea. It's like, put that down and let it be for what it is. And then it's like, oh yeah, the Maha Mantra is actually magical. Cool. All right, I'm here for it. So now I'll feel better whenever I try and take a picture of a sunrise, and I'm like, yeah, that's not going to cut it. No one's going to believe I saw something as beautiful as I describe. You just have to be there.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny that you said that, because during the sunrise this morning, I tried to take pictures. And I was like, I looked at my camera, I was like, this is terrible. Like this, there's nothing that can represent it. So it was a beautiful analogy and so true.
Yeah. That's why the painters keep striving. Our reach exceeds our grasp. It's always ineffable. That's Krishna's magic. So, what to speak of how, yeah, if anybody ever asks you, how is it that the Maha Mantra can be divine, ask them how it is that the sunrise can be unique every day and it can't be captured.
Mm-hmm.
It just is. That's Krishna's magic. Both of them are Krishna's magic. But one is material and one is spiritual. And if you try chanting Hare Krishna, you will have a sunrise at every moment. So.
Beautiful. Thank you.
More reflections?
Thank you. Sorry.
Ty goes to the runner. Nancy, then Eileen.
No, I was just going to say, riffing off of that, the idea that I getting with this sort of helps me to release my judgment of, no, this is good. No, that's not good. And this sunrise is all worthy. No, this one isn't so great today, or whatever. And being able to step back and say, everything, spiritualize everything, is very important, for me, because it makes it so that every moment could be important, regardless of what it is, even if the sun I can't see the sunrise, right? So, thank you.
Thank you. And what you just said reminded me of a verse from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which I'm looking up. Spiritualize my phone. Come on, Google. Don't let me down.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to spiritualize the internet? Oh, I think we are. Yeah. From the Chaitanya Charitamrita Antya-lila, chapter 4, text 176. Dvaite bodhra bodhra gyan shab manodharma, e bhalo e mando e shab brahma. In the material world, conceptions of good and bad are all mental speculations. Therefore, saying this is good and this is bad is all a mistake. That's the same thing you're pointing out, is that like on some basis we may for some relative reason see something as good and something else as bad. And then interestingly, the next verse is quoted it's a quotation from Bhagavad Gita, Vidyavanaya Sampane Brahmane Gavahastani Shunichai Vishapakacha Pandita Samadarshanaha 5:18. Gentle and learned sage sees with equal vision a cow, a dog eater, a Brahmin, an outcast. They can see all that. And they can see that they're all good because they're all divine, right? That's the implication. That's the same thing you were just saying. So you're speaking powerful truth, powerful realization.
She tends to do that.
Yeah. And then Eileen, and then Shakti.
I was just going to say, as we prayed in our japa reflection, please help me chant better, help me I think that's something else to pray, is that like, please give me the eyes that, give me eyes that see you, help that see you everywhere. And so I think, again, when we talk about the magic of Krishna, I feel that magic, like when you pray that way, then you do see things, like every single little thing, kind of comes in front of you. And I just remember, I think I've shared this before, I was like in Ireland with my family a couple years ago, and I was with my family, so I was thinking about Krishna a lot more. I was going through some stuff actually with my family, and I walk into a bookstore, and the first book on the first pile that I look at is Prabhupada book. Like, out of all the thousands and millions of books that were like available, and all the books that were in this massive bookstore, like the book I put my hand on was a Prabhupada book. And so I you see that not just in these little the magical sunsets and the sunrises, like literally, praying to Krishna to see him everywhere, like he does manifest that for us. And it's just, we have to be looking for it and looking with Krishna eyes, to see those things.
Yeah, well, Krishna miracles, they happen all the time. It's magical. Yeah, thanks for that reflection. Yeah, it's a powerful prayer to ask Krishna to let us see him everywhere. Jai. Shakti.
Hare Krishna. Good morning,
Hare
everyone.
Krishna.
I have I have been in the mode of, I don't know if it's passion, ignorance. The one after sattva gun. I'm not
Raja?
always. I'm in the middle.
By passion.
Rajas.
Yeah, mode of passion, and I set my alarm 5 a.m. and I'm so not getting. I'm going to bed at 9 o'clock, and I'm just not getting up, and I'm. I hear what everybody's saying, and I'm trying to make my home a temple. I offer my food. I've been doing, more. I've been actually sharing what it's like to be a devotee, but I can't seem to get myself up in the mornings. I don't know. Like, I feel like I'm sleeping for 10 hours, and I don't, and so like every day I pray to Krishna to help me get closer to him, to help me start my day in a sattvic way, which I know is being up in the morning, and I'm struggling, and I don't really know what to do about it, because I love the mornings. I love being with Krishna. I love that time alone, that quiet time when nobody's awake. And I guess I just ask for you guys, if maybe you guys could share blessings for me to find my way back to. I feel, and when I don't do that, I feel far away from Krishna. So maybe I can ask for you to pray for me to find my way back to that connection. Like, I felt like we were really starting to connect, and just like the last couple of weeks have been really hard, with my mother, just hard. And I think it's just making me feel separate. It's the material world. It's my mother getting older. It's dementia. It's things that are really hard, and I don't know how to. I guess I don't know. I don't know how to separate. I don't know how to get my body up. Like, my body is so tired, and it doesn't want to get up, and it feels exhausted.
Yeah.
And I don't know what to do. I'm spending my days in the Bhagavatam, learning shlokas, doing all of the things, but I'm having a really hard time. So I guess I just ask for your prayers to help me through this hard time to find my way back.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. You got it. And what you're describing is like, it's a thing that happens. It's normal. you know, especially when you're going through what you're going through with your mom, with family,
Grieving.
it's just the way it is sometimes. And Krishna also, you know, first of all, hold on to missing that. You had the thing where you're waking up early. Now you're not as much able to do that. Hold on to that missing, because you're missing that feeling. You're missing that service, at least at that time. That's a nice thing to hold on to, and that'll connect you to more and more possibilities in bhakti. But you got to understand in life that there's going to be situations that throw you for a loop. Like especially with schedules, we have to do our best to try to create the ideal schedule. And then the next step after that is developing the wherewithal to handle when, not if, when that schedule gets wiped out and changed. And sometimes it's illness, sometimes it's someone else's illness, sometimes it's like, oh, there's a revolution happening in this country. I guess we got all leave, or, you know, like anything can happen, and will. Anything can happen. And Krishna is just giving us little opportunities when the small things become bigger things, enough that our bodies and minds are affected, enough that our schedules are thrown off. He's giving us opportunities to actually experience a separation, because you're separated. You feel, you just described a sense of separation from the experiences you were having, and the connection with Krishna, but also an opportunity to create connection in your current circumstance, which is important, because it'll prove to you that Krishna doesn't just exist at 5 o'clock in the morning, and Krishna doesn't just exist when I'm feeling rested, and Krishna doesn't just exist for me when my mother is healthy. He exists when all those things are completely the opposite. And that's an incredible opportunity that you won't always get. It's an uncomfortable, painful, maybe full of resentment, maybe anxiety-ridden opportunity, but it is an opportunity nonetheless. So you're allowed to feel like it sucks. You're allowed to ask for help. It's good that you're doing that, and it's gonna be painful for as long as it's painful, and it's going to require more rest, and it's going to have its implications for your body and mind. And when you're past it, and you will be past it, you'll realize, like, and Krishna was with me the whole time, and I leveled up on my connection, because I didn't get the ideal practice I wanted, because I couldn't, but I still had my connection with Krishna. So you're reading Bhagavatam every day. Like, don't sell yourself short. Nobody can do that cheaply. You are in the spiritual energy. If you're reading Bhagavatam daily and you're chanting rounds, which I know you are, that's already an incredible accomplishment. And, you know, like, I hanker for being a Govardhan and reading for 5 hours a day with my Guru Maharaj during Kartik, and, like, you know, that doesn't mean that just because I'm not doing that, you may as well, like, throw me off a bridge. Like, it's hankering. It's a spiritual hankering. What a gift. What a gift. Put it in the category of all your spiritual high points and ask for it to come back. And it's possible to, it is, I would say, not just possible to thrive and survive, thrive, but you're already doing it, and maybe you don't realize it because you're not waking up the way you wanted to, and because your mom is going through that, and that's, like, legitimately awful and has an effect. But I think you maybe are overlooking how incredible you're doing right now. So those are some thoughts. But as far as practicalities, sometimes I put alarm clocks on the other side of the room. Sometimes you can call a friend and be like, or send a text, can you give me a call tomorrow morning at this time if you're up? Like, I would love for you to just give me a call, and I will, like, because it's harder to press snooze on a human being than it is on your phone or whatever. The other thing is also watch out that you're not cheating your body, because sometimes you just need more than you think you need. And if you're going through something emotional, you may just need more than you think you need, and that cannot be negotiated, right? So even if you did wake up early, you might be, like, living on credit, and then the next day or 2 days from that, a week later, you're crashing, and it's, like, not worth it, right? So it's up to you to figure out where you're at, and if it really is like, well, I'm just kind of being lazy, or is it just like, I'm worn down emotionally and I need more rest, you know? So they have different approaches. Yeah, I remember when my mom was passing away, and then she did pass away, and So I feel it. I feel it, and not that it's necessarily your mom's passing away, but there's some stuff that happens around parents. You know, you don't realize how much they're in your body until you feel that being pulled. It's like, oh wow, they're actually in there. That umbilical cord still exists between me and my mom. Like,
I was like, I was literally talking. I'm like, how come he's talking over me? Because I was on mute. No, um, I wanted to share this because I think you'll find it interesting. Is like I set the alarm for 5, I snoozed it, and then the alarm went off. I set it again for like I think 5:45 because I wanted to come on the call, and I said, oh, I gotta. Oh, and George got up. George put the computer on, sat me down. He's, don't worry, just go downstairs. And he's the one who who's the adjacent one, which we kept talking about. I just thought you guys would find it funny.
we met
He's
George.
the one who got me here this morning. He's the one who said, sit down. I'm going to open the book. I'm going to get you a tea. Just sit down. You don't have to do anything.
So sweet.
Damn, George,
Yeah.
George.
way to go!
Yeah.
What a hero.
Yeah.
Well, we both said after we met him, like, we really like him. He's a
Yeah.
really good person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's the power of association, the power of surrounding yourself with good association, the people who support your spiritual practices, and which we all will for each other. So lean on us if you need.
Yeah. I want to
Um,
say I'm sorry about your mom.
yeah, she was hearing Prabhupada chant Hare Krishna when she left her body.
Mm.
So Krishna showed up that way. It was I was there. I got there just in time to play Prabhupada for her. You got to go anyway. May as well have Prabhupada playing. And she always supported me in my practice. And I'm her firstborn and her only son, and that matters in that culture. And she really supported me becoming a monk, which is like mind blowing. So, um, who knows what kind of benefit from Lord Chaitanya's perspective she'll get.
Yeah. I mean,
That's
my
how it
mom,
is.
at first she forgot that we even went to see her. Then some days she remembers and said she's so happy that we all came and she got to see Jada and my son. And then, she cries and then she's like, when are you coming to see me? So it's this sort of like,
Yeah.
it's really emotionally
A
heavy.
lot. It's exhausting.
It's
Yeah.
exhausting.
You gotta take comfort that underneath all that discombobulation that's happening for them mentally, the soul is there and they remember, because it's really awful when you see somebody break down like that. It really plays a number on you. Um, and I didn't have as much firsthand experience because I was in the ashram doing my service. But when I came to see my mom, it was really hard. But my sister and my dad really had it bad. They were taking care of her, and they saw her like degrade over a few months in the last couple of years. So it is very, very difficult. It's one of the most difficult things, really,
That's
in life,
exactly what
is to do
happened though.
exactly that.
My sister's been taken care of, like seeing
Yeah,
her, going there every year, and it was 3 years I haven't seen her. And my sister said, "You have to go see her. She's not going to be around, for a long time." And she's starting to forget. Like I'll call her and she'll say, "How are the kids?" I only have one child,
yeah,
So we made the trip. We all went to go see her, and it was really like I was startled. I was shocked. I was sad. I was angry. I was all
yeah.
of the things.
And your mom has a daughter who is a disciple of a pure devotee, and a grand disciple of another pure devotee, and a great grand disciple of another pure devotee who's chanting Hare Krishna. And so, in ways you don't even recognize right now, you will be empowered to help your mom,
Yes.
right? So be there for her as she's living, and be there for her as she's leaving, and that will be the best service. And what you're doing every day is also the best service for her, whether you realize it or not. It is, as Prabhupada put it, um, when one takes up spiritual activities, one's entire material body is spiritualized. And when one spreads Krishna consciousness, the entire material world becomes spiritualized. So the effect is indelible and subtle. We've seen it many times, especially with parents. Krishna, it turns out Krishna is really like grateful for somebody who sacrifices their child to practice Krishna consciousness. He's really, as we see in this Leela, he gives Prahlad so many benedictions. He says, your whole family, 7 generations back and 7 generations forward, I will give them all bhakti and pure liberation, because I love you so much. You're such a great devotee. You're like this flower that is like aromatically like enhance the entire field. I accept the whole field. So Krishna's nature is that he's looking very closely at your mother, and he's considering her, and he's bringing her in. Just know that. Okay. On that note, Srila Prabhupada ki jai,
Jai.
Shri Prahlad Maharaj ki jai,
Jai.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Jai.
And let's take this opportunity to offer our respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, who are just like desire trees. They can fulfill the desires of everyone. And they're full of compassion for all the fallen conditioned souls. Jai. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindhubhyev chaptitanam bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Anantakoti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai.
Jai.
Have a great day.